Okay, cool. You guys can hear me. All right. Just wanted to make sure because I don't stream often and I actually just started using Streamlabs, so this is a brand new software for me. Uh, but it seems a lot cooler than the last one I've used. So how are you guys doing? You guys did you do anything fun over the weekend? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm glad you guys can make it too. So I'm gonna keep this not too long, maybe 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes. I'm just testing out a PowerPoint presentation. I think you guys might have seen my old emotional intelligence video. So it's about that, but just a little bit more deeper and a little bit, we're gonna like analyze it more like in the modern times and just, explore a different dimension of emotional intelligence, preferred specifically with communication, because I have just been just from talking to you guys on DMs and just seeing, issues around the world and just things trending. I'm just like, okay, a lot of this stuff can be attributed to communication and just being emotionally intelligent enough to be able to read people better on an emotional level, at least. So it's just to help people with their interpersonal relationships and your relationship with yourself, of course. Joanna, how's it going? Awesome. Alrighty, cool. So I'm going to start first by lighting a candle for all the sinners. Not a candle, but an incense stick. You guys use incense sticks or candles? I used to use candles, but I feel like it just burns too much oxygen. So I like using incense sticks. Ah, smells so good. Okay. Hello to all the lurkers. They use sticks too. The sticks, the aroma spreads quicker than wax as well, and it doesn't burn up all the oxygen, which is important when you're trying to sleep, have a good healthy night's sleep. Oh, thanks, Joanna. Maria, how's it going? Hope you're well over there in the Europe time zone. I don't know what time it is over there, but I'm glad you can make it. Okay, so I have like two computer screens. All right. Um, all right, I guess we can start. Let us start. Yeah, it's 2:10. All right, there we go. There we go. You guys could see this, right? This slideshow, 11 p.m. Okay, so you're about to go to sleep, but yeah, don't worry. I'm gonna keep this pretty quick. Uh, it's like about like a 10-minute presentation. And then we'll open it up to just 5 minutes of discussion and questions if anyone has some. So it's not going to be too long. Awesome. You guys can see it? Yeah, I'm good, Joanna. Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, it's funny because I was just telling everyone I've already done a video on emotional intelligence, but I think a lot of people will benefit from this just because I've been seeing so many issues that we can attribute to just having a higher awareness of emotional intelligence and awareness of your communication skills and articulation. So I figured I'd just revamp this topic. Um, and yeah, all right, so let's get started because I don't want to make it too long. Hey, Laura. All right, so today we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence. All right, so what exactly is emotional intelligence? Well, the definition, textbook definition of emotional intelligence, is the ability to perceive, control, and evaluate emotions in positive ways to relieve stress and communicate effectively, empathize with others, and really just overcome the challenges and diffuse conflict. All right, so that is the textbook definition of emotional intelligence. So, emotional intelligence is abbreviated as EQ, which is often contrasted with IQ, which is the intelligent coefficient that a lot of people are familiar with. So, when you compare and contrast EQ with IQ, EQ is more about the intelligence of empathy, of how you can motivate yourself, how you can manage relationships with yourself and with other people, and how you have a self-control of your own emotions and your own thoughts, and that awareness within yourself and also with other people and how they control themselves and really walk throughout life with their emotions and their thoughts. Whereas IQ is more like analytical, how you know stuff technically, the facts and the data, and being able to really conceptualize and critically think with data, like math, for example. So it's more about like finding out the patterns within people's logic. It's the deductive reasoning. So, which is also important, but which is more important. So, according to studies, it turns out that IQ only determines 20 to 25% of business success, whereas EQ determines 75 to 80% of business success. So there is a huge, huge gap between IQ and EQ. And although the studies have only looked at it for business success because that's just where the money's at, so they're going to obviously send researchers and scientists to research what makes a business successful. It can be also applied theoretically to the success in your relationships, the success in how you talk to people, how you talk to yourself, and even the success in certain political groups. So it can be applied to everything, but they just need to do more studies and fund more studies, I guess. But mainly they've done it for business because, like I said, that's where the money's at. So they're going to be able to hire more researchers to do it. But it's just something to keep in mind, right? EQ has a significantly higher impact on business success compared to the IQ. And you would think that knowing the technical, skills like how to program a computer is more important than talking to someone or knowing how to, like say if you're a lawyer, knowing all the rules and regulations is more important than knowing how to, keep interpersonal relationships. But that's what the studies show. EQ is actually more important. So it's a pretty crazy finding. Okay, looking at the comments real quick. Elise, nice to see you. Elise is a great artist, which I'm sure all of you all know. Okay, so one thing to note, one very important thing to note, is that emotional intelligence does not oppose your logic and reason. A lot of people think emotional intelligence is about being emotional and about, being more empathetic. Not necessarily. It is simply in fact, it is intelligence. It's not even emotions. You would think emotional intelligence is being emotional, but it's actually being intelligent because emotional is the adjective describing intelligence, right? So emotional intelligence is your intelligence filtering your emotions. So it is logic and reason filtering your emotions. So that also it's important to remember that this means that emotions are logical, right? A lot of people think emotions oppose logic and reason, right? They think, oh, like your emotions are spontaneous, they come out of nowhere, and they make you go crazy if you just follow your emotions. But really, if you're emotionally intelligent, you can see the fine-tuned details of how emotions are coming to be, right? So it's like, how does one go from sad to angry to calm? There's actual logic behind how each emotion is transitioning to the other emotion, right? And emotions are always transitioning, just like the in physics, right? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. So similarly with emotions, they're like this emotional energy. It's not created or destroyed. It's just constantly being converted to a different emotion throughout your life. So that's just one thing to remember, that emotions can be logical if you have emotional intelligence. So it's not like a random thing. It doesn't, it's not like magic. It just comes out of thin air and you're just angry out of nowhere. No, there's a reason why you're angry. No, there's a reason why you're depressed. There's always reason and logic to how the universe works, right? And one character that exemplifies emotional intelligence. I don't know if you guys have seen Death Note, but L from Death Note, he's like the epitome of a very emotionally intelligent individual because he's always solving these like mysteries through just learning people's behaviors and seeing how people talk. It's a very interesting show. It's a very like logically strategic driven show. So why is EQ important? I mean, obviously it's important, but what's like the real, like the main reason that it's important. So I have this page in my book. I don't know if you guys have gotten my book. I know most of you have my book. But if you turn to page 19, day 19 of my book, right? I talk about communication and miscommunication. So I'll just put it up here. Miscommunication and lack of communication are the roots of most of our problems. Now, if you haven't gotten to this page yet, I'll just read a little bit of it. So, background. If everyone just said what they meant, most of our world's problems would be solved. But people rarely ever say what they mean, even when their intentions are good. Their impact may not be. This is why miscommunication and lack of communication can occur in nearly every setting. Interpersonal relationships resulting in negativity, mistrust, or even sudden dramatic outbursts may simply be rooted in miscommunication or lack of communication. Communication errors can be caused by assumptions, ambiguity, lack of context, or an ineffective medium. This is why our communication uh, often needs an explanation beyond the artificial languages constructed by man, which we'll talk about later, and the utilization of facial expressions, body language, context, and tone of voice. So basically, what that means is getting your intent to match your impact, right? And that's where a lot of people get confused and lost. They don't match their intent with their impact. Maybe you have a positive intent. And in fact, most people can wholeheartedly agree that they have positive intents, right? That we all want world peace, we all want what's better for our neighbor, blah, blah, blah. Every religion, every culture, every legal organization, every government basically says the same thing, right? Treat others the way you wish to be treated. That's our intent. But then you look at the impact, it's not matching, right? So say that you intended for someone to I don't know, learn something, and it came off condescending to the individual that you were trying to teach, and now they got offended, and now they're like, oh, this guy's like trying to talk down to me or something like that. And now the impact is that they're going to hate you and they're going to maybe try to get vengeance on you. Now they're going to try to attack you. And then they attack you and you're like, why is this guy being a dick to me? And now you're going to attack them back. And it just causes this like negative, spiral, this positive feedback of just negative energy with people with negative intentions. But it started off with someone trying to have a good intent. So you see how a lot of the world's problems can be just attributed to that communication where the intent got mismatched with the impact. So that's just something to keep in mind. When you're talking to your family, your friends, your social media friends, whoever, you got to try to really look at what your impact is and see if it's matching your intent. Because if it is not, then there is either miscommunication or a lack of communication. And if you can be emotionally intelligent enough to fix that miscommunication or lack of communication, you can be very powerful, very persuasive, and solve a lot of issues with people around you. Um, so it's just a great skill to have, and that's something to keep in mind. Taking a look at the comments here. Yeah, I'm always glad to see familiar faces and names here too. And thankfully, no trolls. When I do live streams, I never have trolls. But when I like post like a YouTube short or a TikTok, it's just like a influx of just tons and tons of trolls, which is ridiculous. But I guess it's because they're not subscribed to me, so they don't see my live streams. That's funny, Elise. Getting your face under control. Yeah, no, that's good, Lee, because then you're gonna start digging yourself a deeper grave, right? So that's good. You got to stop, then kind of just sit down, meditate, go into a void state, really reflect on how, like, what was the source of that miscommunication or lack of communication, and what could you do differently next time to try to have a better impact on this individual. And sometimes it's not even your fault. It's not your fault at all. It's just it's just the way they interpret your voice, your tone of voice, or the way, they maybe have a trauma from a certain trigger word, and that word just triggered them, and now they're gonna, really just start finding a reason to just be offended by you. But anyways, moving on. So next slide. Speaking of languages, so communication, just simply defined, is the sending or receiving of information. That's it, sending or receiving of information. Now, one of the most common languages that we use is artificial language, right? This can be English, Spanish, Hindi, Farsi, Punjabi, Latin. These are all artificial languages because they have been constructed by mankind. Now, interestingly enough, we think that, like, oh, I'm an English speaker, oh, I'm a Spanish speaker. We think that's like our main language that we're using, but it's not. When we communicate, we're not, even though, like, I'm speaking English to you, majority of the information that you're receiving is through artificial language, which is kind of weird, but let me explain what artificial language is. I mean, sorry, natural language, right? You're hearing me through natural language. So let me explain what natural language is. Natural language is your body language, your tonality, right? The tempo, how quickly or how slowly you speak, the sounds you make with your voice, the energy you give off, the vibe you give off, basically your vibe, right? So natural language far predates artificial language. This is the language that, animals spoke. This is the language before English, before the first human language was constructed. And that is like our subconscious language that we often don't immediately recognize, but our entire evolutionary psychology is designed to pick up every